and we are with a very special guest. You can see that we're there in we have the very special Evan Ginzburg, who's going to help unpack the Hogan series documentary on Netflix. But also, first up, how's it going, Evan?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
You enjoy all your end of year parties, end of term parties, and so forth.
Yeah. It's always fun. I I juggle filmmaking and teaching and writing, and my whole life I've basically juggled them all, and you know now is no different as I get a bit older. you know.
Cool. All right. See, speaking of now, one thing, folks, gonna have to excuse me. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm going to sound a bit raspy, and hopefully, I'm not. I'm not actually going to be um, coughing too much. I've had all my coughing fits before we went to air. So yeah, you've got your brand new book, and congratulations on that. It's Grindhouse, Art House, and Wrestling Flicks. See, it sounds pretty adult content. What's it all about?
Um, I love movies my entire life, and I watch the worst grindhouse films, and I find them relaxing because you can shut your brains off for a while and just savor some of the stupidity. Or I can watch the greatest filmmakers of all time: Kurosawa, Antonioni, Fellini, etc., so on. And it depends what mood I'm in, but I just love movies. They're an escape, and I still regularly go to the movie theater. And I do these little mini reviews. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Why is this worth seeing? What's special about it? Or why is it not worth your time? These short little reviews that try to capture the essence of a film. And I put together hundreds and hundreds of not only reviews, but pieces on some of my greatest movie going experiences. For example, sitting in a theater in 1978 when the original Halloween came out and people jumping out of their seats, or going to see Rocky the first time in the theater. You felt you were in, Madison Square Garden, seeing Ali and Frazier. The fans were just screaming during the fight with Rocky and Apollo Creed, and etc. So on. Great movie going experiences, seeing a race ahead at midnight, and just Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight, and the audience acting out the entire film.
Parts.
And, yeah, it's always fun heading out at night for something at midnight, and afterwards going to a restaurant at 2 or 3 a.m. and staggering home at the break of dawn, having just a great time. And today, people's living rooms are like a movie theater between the
Mm.
large screen TV and the surround sound. And people have gotten out of the habit of going to films, particularly after COVID. The fear kicked in. So I'll sit in movie theaters now, and I've had experiences. I'm the only person in the theater. It's almost like a private screening, and
Yeah.
some of the films are not bad, and they deserve better. And yeah, I'll tell you, most of the time, if I go to a movie during the day, there's usually not more than 20 people in there, and that's a lot
Wow.
sometimes. And
Yeah.
I hope movie theaters don't go the way of the dinosaur, because I love that experience. People reacting in real time. They jump, a jump scare in a horror film. They jump, or they're emotionally moved by something, and you're sitting there with people and you're experiencing it. And I remember seeing Denzel Washington playing Malcolm X, and I walk into the bathroom right after the movie. It was a long movie, about 3 hours, and this guy's sitting in the bathroom sobbing, just sobbing, from the movie. And
Mm.
guys,
Movies can do that.
yeah, guys are uncomfortable crying in public, and he says to me, "I'm sorry, I just lost it. I just, because Malcolm X was gunned down in New York, gunned down." So
Right.
yeah, so it's yeah, it's a whole different experience going to a movie and laughing together, crying together, jumping in fright together, as opposed
Yeah.
to as opposed to you sitting on your couch and you take a bathroom break or a phone break. It's not the same thing.
And how would you say there was a difference between that and your previous book, Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets?
Well, my previous book was basically my life story in 100 nonfiction short pieces,
Hmm.
in a chronological order, growing up in a tough urban Brooklyn neighborhood in the 1970s, and later on becoming a teacher, becoming a filmmaker, becoming a writer, and um, and an agent in pro wrestling. And I booked guys like Johnny Valiant, Jimmy Valiant, Nikolai Volkov, Lanny Poffo,
Hmm.
Nicole Bass, and most of them became dear friends, and many of them are gone now. And I write about some of those experiences, the good, the bad, and ugly of working in the wrestling business. Um, I tell people all the time, some of my closest, dearest friends I met through pro wrestling. And then there are dirt bags I wouldn't spit on if they were on fire that I met in real.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. With because with the critics job that you do, I'm going to lead into something wrestling related with criticism type thing. Do you write as a movie review as a fan or as someone who's been on the technical side of things?
Um, a little of both,
Hmm.
knowing the very difficult financial end of making movies. I was an associate producer on The Wrestler for Darren Aronofsky, and
Hmm.
being there at the funding meetings, we tried to raise $18 million for The Wrestler. And because Mickey Rourke's star had waned at the time, we finished it in 2008. We only came up with $6 million, which sounds like a lot of money to a layman, but it's nothing for a film. Today would be like the food budget on a Marvel superhero movie.
Yeah.
$6
Well, I think the public has become accustomed to saying that, oh, $6 million for a movie means that, oh, you used it on a Sony camcorder or something like that.
Well,
We've become numb to it.
we did not have a lot of money for extras or anything like that. And a lot of it was almost guerrilla filmmaking. We would roll into a Ring of Honor show or an indie show and film like between matches. And sometimes the fans would be angry at us where, you know, we're interrupting the flow of their wrestling shows. So one time, Aronofsky actually gets on the mic to calm the crowd down. Listen, guys, we're gonna do you proud. We're gonna make a good film for you. Just let me get one or two more quick takes. Because
Yeah.
they wanted us out of there. We were, it was really a wild ride, and to Aronofsky's respect. He wanted it to ring true, and it did. Wrestling
It
is a
did, yeah.
brutal business, and more people, walk away worse for wear than the people that do extremely well, like a Roman Reigns or a John Cena. That's the exception to the rule. I mean, it's better today, but lighter schedule and more money if you make it. But there's still plenty of indie guys working for free or $25 and a handshake,
Yeah,
as they used to say.
we got the same thing here in Australia.
Yeah.
Guys that they can't be attached to just one roster, even in Melbourne. They've got to be in 5 or 6 rosters, and they have to go interstate. Now, I see on a map of America, interstate to you guys might mean going 100 miles. Interstate to us means going 800 miles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just yes, to get maybe 2 or 3 paydays over a weekend if you can get a Friday, Saturday, Sunday gig.
Well, the indie wrestlers, whether it's Australia or New York, it's variations on a theme. It's very tough, and you're really paying your dues, and they have to really pick it up on the merch end of things, and sell
Yeah,
T-shirts and autographs and whatnot, because you're not going to make it on an indie payday.
no, that's right. Now you've been rightly so an outspoken critic of the corporate practices by WWE with their pricing, and you're not Robinson Crusoe and that sort of thing. Has anyone, being that you're a name sort of person, has anyone from WWE ever reached out to you about it?
Not WWE, but I've had WWE supporters, very angry. Um, you know, if you speak out about anything, the
The tribalism.
the tribalism kicks in. Just the other
Oh,
day, just the other day, a podcast mope said, about me, quote, "I hope you have a terrible death because I'm critical
Ooh,
because I'm critical of WWE, greedily charging 3, 4, 5 figures for a mediocre pay-per-view or whatnot." Now, you know, this podcaster who has been quoted as saying, quote, I'm not paraphrasing, WWE is my religion. Vince McMahon is my hero. He's a great American. Obviously, he's not going to like somebody who is critical of said product and said corporation. And you have guys there making Triple H and Stephanie are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. How,
mm,
how do you literally hundreds of millions, no exaggeration. How do
yeah,
you, how do you let your legends and pioneers die penniless, needing
yeah.
GoFundMe's for a funeral or hospital expenses or to save their homes?
Well, they're
Guys like
probably just worried. Yeah, they're probably just thinking that Cauliflower Alley Club will take care of it.
Cauliflower Alley Club helps wrestlers, but they don't have hundreds of millions of dollars.
Ah, exactly. True.
There's
True.
a big difference.
Yeah. But the thought also occurred to me, even if the WWE Premium Live event, as they call it now, even if it was the greatest thing you ever saw, how do you justify spending $20,000, $30,000 on it?
Because it's appealing to a different audience. The Knicks are in the playoffs in New York, and I'm watching all these videos where regular, regular people are, very nonchalantly saying, "Oh, I spent 600, 700, $800 on a ticket," and you know, it's like going to the Super Bowl, going to a WWE pay-per-view now, and
Yeah, but that pales in significance compared to 20 grand.
yeah, yeah, but here's another side of it that people aren't addressing. I've had people say to me, friends who are regular working people, I quote, splurged for last year's WrestleMania
Hmm.
2025, and I'm still paying it off on my credit card. So there are people who are going to get into financial trouble because of this, because it becomes an addiction. It becomes almost like a religious, going on a religious pilgrimage, and they're going to cross state lines, or even I had a friend who went to Saudi Arabia for the WWE pay-per-view. It becomes part of their lifestyle, and some can afford it and some can't afford it, and some will painfully pay it off for months or years to do it. And I don't see it myself because I don't get that level of enjoyment out of it. I thought Reigns and Punk was an excellent match, great match, but I wouldn't spend 4 or 5 figures to see any wrestling match. It's it's just me. But so in short, yes, if you are outspoken about these things, the corporate apologist, the fanboy obsessives who live and breathe WWE and have no other interest or whatnot, they're going to get angry. So the spin is, oh, these wrestlers pissed away fortunes on wine, women, and song. Well, some did, and many, many, many didn't. They never got paid fortunes to begin with. These guys were my friends, and told me face to face, Evan, I never broke $100,000 in the wrestling business, and that's 300 plus days on the road, where they're supporting a family back home, minus taxes, minus road expenses, minus doctor bills when you inevitably get hurt in a physical business. These guys didn't make fortunes to piss away in the first place.
Yeah. Hence that great documentary you've got, 350 Days.
Thank you. Yeah, the title 350 Days comes from the fact that NWA champions literally wrestled 350 days. Now, you're from Australia. A Harley Race or a Jack Briscoe or whomever, Terry Funk, they would fly to Australia and Japan and literally around the world to defend their belts, and they'd be on the road 350 days a year. Now,
yeah, well, we had Harley out in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Killer Kowalski was big in Australia. He wasn't NWA champ, but he was big in Australia, and guys like that, and they never made the money they should have made back in the day. So to say they pissed away fortunes is a myth. I mean, if you say all of them, it's just not true. Some of them, many of them maybe, but not all of them. That I could tell you.
So, what the Hogan Netflix series? What did you think of it overall?
As someone who makes documentaries like 350 Days and is involved in documentaries, just like I said before, I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. The good is you saw Hogan as Terry Bollea, trying, not necessarily successfully, but trying to be a good family man, trying to be a good father. You saw him with the Make-A-Wish kids, and that was very heart-wrenching. You saw him with the physically challenged fans, and you could see he was moved by it and was trying to do the right thing by them. And that part of it, I thought was, parts of it I thought were effective. On the other hand, okay, he's estranged from his daughter, Brooke, and she's not in she's literally not interviewed in the film, and the film is presenting him as a family guy. Now, isn't that a gaping hole in a documentary that one of the central characters is not interviewed? Okay,
very much so. And same with his second wife.
Same with the second. I was just about to say that the second wife, which was a 10 or 11 year relationship, was not there whatsoever. It's just this huge hole in his life in a 4-hour film.
Mm.
Now this I could tell you as someone who makes indie films. The ideal running time for a documentary is 80 minutes. 80 minutes. Okay? Every second should count. Every moment should count. It should be tight. Okay? When you start to go 2, 3, 4 hours, you're getting repetitive, and it's just too long. So they had the luxury of having 4 hours to tell a story. The daughter's missing. The second wife, for the most part, they're both missing. And the son's scandals are missing.
Well, that seems to be like a whitewash type thing to me.
Yeah, so to some degree, now look, you know, when you're making a film and you're interviewing these guys and you're spending time with them in their homes and you're eating with them and you're bonding with them, I understand. You don't want to do a hatchet job on somebody. Okay. But at the same time, you have choices as a filmmaker. They chose to present Terry Bollea, the husband, the family guy, and chunks of it, huge chunks of it, are missing. So you're not successfully telling that story, which a quality documentary, the filmmaker is detached from it, and basically the subjects being interviewed are willing to eviscerate themselves like a Richard Pryor always did on stage, and just pour your guts out and tell the story, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And I
And
think,
even the bad part, sorry, I was just going to say the bad part of it, you can then say, well, this is why he did that and he regrets it. Because we all make mistakes.
yeah.
None
So
of us are perfect.
speaking of that, you have mentioned in the film the notorious racial slur that was captured on film that he made when his daughter was dating an African American guy. So
Mm-hmm.
a different filmmaker would play that audio tape or that videotape where you hear what the guy said. You didn't hear what he said. You just heard him apologizing for what he said,
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
which is not as effective. You have to be brutally honest,
Mm.
when you're making a documentary. And
But my main problem with what he said is not so much, oh, he said, because there's that dog whistle thing that says, oh, he says an N word, he must be racist. But I never got context. Did he say that because he didn't like that particular guy, or he didn't like that guy because he was African American?
exactly, which you're 110% right, which is why it would have been so much more effective if they actually put that into the film where the film viewer could make that judgment.
Hmm.
What did he say? What was the context? It was just this vague, I said something bad. People say things that are bad. I'm sorry, which is not effective filmmaking. You have to be willing to just dig up the dirt and address it. Otherwise, it's half-assed. And I did not regret watching it, and that's a 4-hour investment. There were some interesting moments and some powerful moments and poignant
Mm-hmm.
moments. His funeral was poignant.
Yes.
Like I said before, the scenes with him and the kids, him with the adults with this, physical challenges. That was powerful filmmaking, but as a whole, it's a flawed work. And let me say this: there are guys like Muhammad Ali who had a good and bad side. You know, that there's been dozens of documentaries about them. Maybe someday somebody who's not as attached to Hogan personally. I mean, look, they're filming the guy, they're interviewing the guy, they're sitting in his home, and then he dies. So I can understand they don't want to, you know,
Pile
paint
on.
paint this horrific portrait of him. But the
Mm.
guy, you know, the guy years ago, I interviewed his wife. I interviewed his wife on my old podcast, and
Which one?
she,
Linda?
what's that?
Was that Linda or the three?
Yeah, Linda, yeah.
You had
So
three to choose from.
yeah, there's three, right. So the last one was not as public, it seems, but
Yeah.
so Linda, who wrote a book, she was promoting a book. She came on our podcast, Dr. Mike Lano and myself back in the day, Legends
Hmm.
Radio. And she says to me, she says to us, you know, I was with Terry when he had nothing, nothing. He was an indie wrestler. He was, you know, working his way up. And, you know, and I stood by him and he cheated on me. You know, and it sounds like, I mean, I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth, but it sounds like that might have been the issue with the second wife. I don't know, because they didn't really fully address it. So, you know, the guy, the guy had a, I'm married 16 years. I've never cheated on my wife. You know, it
Mm.
is possible. At the same time, I'm not a celebrity having women throwing themselves at me, so you don't have that constant temptation either. But
Yeah.
it's
Did you ever meet Hogan?
no, I never met Hogan. Never met Hogan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. But you know what? What one thing that was interesting to me, and this is something you probably appreciate being like the filmmaker and documentary maker yourself, because like here in Australia, we only started getting superstars of wrestling after WrestleMania 1, right? And that
right,
was on the Channel's 10 network, and we didn't get any other stuff on a regular basis. You'd get just like um, the the odd news story about wrestling and so forth, or this, that, or the other. And the B roll of the early days, a lot of it looked like it was from um, a lot of it looked like it was from somebody's VHS collection.
right. Yeah,
I could swear I could actually see the auto tracking come up on one thing. But
yeah,
you know what was really, really funny to me? And I'm going to share this screenshot with you. This, you'll get a funny kick. See this picture here,
yeah,
right? It was a story about this guy here. He was from like Louisiana or something like that. And he was a super fan of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, or as he called him, Jim Dugan.
right.
And that's his wife. And that's all his kids and grandkids. And then you see down here all these big stack of wrestling um, magazines.
That guy's as fertile as a Kansas wheat field after a spring rain. Look at all these kids. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then and then after that, you've got they actually used another shot from that same thing, from that same story, um, whereby, and I was going to, where are we? Share something else. Okay, so that's from the same story because you can see the magazines there. And what they've done, instead of superimposing Jim Duggan's picture, because that's what the story was about, there's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
He had nothing to do with that story because I remember, because I saved that story. It was like on uh, Wide World of Sports or something like that, and and it was just really funny when I saw that. I thought I recognise that guy. He's the guy that was a big fan and sort of a simple sort of fella. Seemed like a nice sort of fella, him and his wife, and they were fans of Hacksaw Jim Dugan. I don't
Now,
know why they pronounce it.
now getting back to what we were saying earlier, Hacksaw in UWF for Bill Watts was this wild, violent, character. And when he
Yes.
got to WWF, he became rather cartoonish and, you know, kind of goofy. And again, this is my point of contention with WWE. They'll take somebody and basically neuter them many times. Not always. I mean, but Gunther is totally old school, like a Killer Kowalski. I love
Oh,
Gunther.
I love. Yeah, he's great.
Cody
He's amazing.
Cody's pretty old school. I enjoy Cody. I enjoy
Yeah.
I enjoy Reigns on the right night, not always, but it's for the most part they'll take a quality wrestler and turn them into a comic book character, and it's not necessarily for the better.
Well, they made the sheep herders into the bushwhackers.
Yeah, I saw the sheep herders on NWA cards in America, and they were fierce. They were bloody brawlers. Then
Yeah.
you turn them into the bushwhackers, and they're licking the other guy's head or whatnot, and it's silly. And so the spin, of course, this is all like a cycle. The spin is, well, they made really good money in WWE, but meanwhile, when Butch died, he needed a GoFundMe, so he didn't make the money
Mm,
that people think he made. Okay.
yeah. And it's really funny when you look back on a lot of careers, even during those glory days. A lot of them were short careers. You say, oh, they were big stars, but for how long? Even the Honky Tonk Man, he's like main run was only like a 3 year sort of space.
Yeah.
Hogan was on and off during those 6 years because he wanted to go off and make a movie. He wanted to have a rest. He wanted to do this and that, and he wasn't even wrestling as big a schedule as what Flair was.
The irony of all of it is guys like Tito Santana and the Honky Tonk Man, you know, they became school teachers, and as school teachers, you have pension and investments and
Mm,
all kinds of benefits, and in the long run you're going to do better with that day job than you did selling out major arenas for the most
mm.
part. um,
Easier on the body too.
yeah. Yeah, Tito Santana went on to teach Spanish in a New Jersey school to kids. And you know, I've taught also, so I understand it's sometimes slow but steady wins the race. In wrestling, again, um, mid '80s, the money kicked in, but I could break it down for you. A main event guy in the mid '80s, not Hogan. Hogan made a lot of money, but the average
Yeah.
guy like Nikolai could pull in 400 grand. Okay, 400 grand.
Mm,
Sounds like a lot of money, but after taxes, it's half as much. Then you have 300 plus days on the road. Then every day, meals, hotels, the whole deal. It's not the windfall that it sounds like. It really isn't.
I'll tell you what. Tell you who got a really good going. Looked nice in his sports jacket. Our mutual wrestling mate, Keith Elliott Greenberg. He's more of your mate.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
had a nice. He had some nice
Keith's a
movies.
good guy, and Keith's the real deal. He's a writer. He's not a
Yeah.
guy. He's not a clickbait boy. Just summing up Raw for the zillionth time. It's
Uh,
he's a legitimate writer, Keith Elliott Greenberg. You know, ditto Brian Solomon, who just did the Gorilla Monsoon book, and
the Irresistible Force.
but
Yeah.
you could count the actual writers on maybe two hands. A lot of these guys are just reviewing Raw and SmackDown. You know.
Smack
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But continue on the thoughts. It was more interesting as to who the doco left off and who they actually featured and why. For example, Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. There was hardly anything on them.
Well, they're both dead. That probably had something to do with it. You couldn't interview them, so you couldn't get that perspective.
But you could get other perspectives from around them because,
Yeah,
they spoke about Andre, and Andre's dead for longer than them.
yeah, but there's still. I get it, but you generally want to do first person interviews when you're
Yeah.
talking. If you have that option anyway,
Okay, but
which is another
in that
reason why
case,
Brooke Hogan not being in it was a big,
yes.
gaping hole in the film.
And she used to be such a defender of his.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was a
So
big defender.
you're sitting there, and the nagging question is what went wrong, and a documentary should tell you what went wrong. Only
Yeah,
it
true.
didn't. So
also, apart from the others,
the word you kept hearing with Brooke is, quote, estranged. So, but why? It just wasn't really clear.
Also, apart from some early stuff and how they're best mates, Brutus Briefcake, he really should have featured more, seeing as though he he was always part of Hogan's crew. If Hogan went to WCW, in he comes as 10 other gimmicks.
Well, when you're doing a documentary, we had 90 hours for 350 days, 90 hours of content, which is whittled down to an hour 50 in our case. We had an editor, Michael Burlingame, who worked with Paul McCartney, Mariah Carey, Sting the musician, not the wrestler. So, we had a top-notch editor. And as you're going through footage, there could be background, noise. There could be lighting that isn't ideal, like my being like green, like the Incredible Hulk here. But if this was a documentary rather than a podcast, it would be an issue. I don't care, but I'm just saying. There are things that come up, and it could be as simple as Jimmy Hart is a better talker than Brutus Beefcake, possibly, probably. I don't know. You don't know what footage the editor had in front of him or her, whoever edited it, and that could be part of the issue. Maybe Jimmy Hart just had quote unquote better things to say, more profound, more insightful things to say than Beefcake did. I don't know. I wasn't there. But
Well, I do know one thing. Towards the end of Hogan's life, Beefcake and Hogan were on the outs.
well, that could be part of it too, if you want to paint the positive portrait. Look, they interviewed.
That was due to Beefcake's wife.
Okay, but I don't know the details.
According to what I heard.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea. But again, they're interviewing the guy. They're connecting with the guy. They're bonding with the guy. You're seeing his good side, and then he suddenly dies. And I can understand, just as a person, as a human being, you want to paint a more positive portrait because it's raw, not the show, emotionally raw. And the guy just passed, and you're editing this thing, and you don't want to bury him. And maybe, Jimmy Hart clearly loved the guy. That was his best friend. Loved the guy. And maybe at the time Beefcake didn't. I don't know. I don't know the backstory. But that could be part of it also. Everything in a film is a choice. What goes in, what doesn't go in, what shot, what angle. Everything's a choice. So Jimmy Hart won over. When it was wrapped up, Jimmy Hart was one of the major voices in that film.
Yeah, because also too the Hiro Matsuda story about the broken leg on his first day of training. It's always been said that Hiro Matsuda broke Hogan's leg first day of training. He had to go off and get it healed, but they never really mentioned that. They said that he injured him, but they didn't say what happened. And it's almost like made out that he came back the next day for his next bout of training.
Yeah, sometimes these things become like urban myths and they get exaggerated.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I always heard Matsuda was a real pro. I don't see why he would break somebody's leg intentionally.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I
So
could
maybe it was an urban myth.
again, I wasn't there, but the way Hogan told it was it sounded different than the way we've always heard it, right?
Yeah, that's it. And also Jesse the Body Ventura. He had a couple of good interviews, but he didn't mention about getting ratted out by Hogan about the unionising.
Yeah. Well, that could have ended up on the cutting room floor because that would have painted Hogan really in a terrible light, and rightfully so, because you're not looking out for your boys, you're looking out for yourself in that scenario. So I mean, Ventura said that a zillion times publicly. I'd be shocked if he didn't tell the filmmakers this. So
Hmm.
they might have just chose not to use it.
Possibly also, I've got a theory about why a lot of this would be. It all ties up, but I'll mention that towards the end. Because even Dr. D. David Schultz, he didn't get a mention, and he was a Hogan friend for a long time till he wasn't.
Well,
Um, Andre didn't get as much of a mention as you'd think, seeing as though, especially that WrestleMania 3 elevated Hogan to a new, even more of a level.
well, I'm glad they didn't go the WrestleMania 3 route where they take a chunk of the movie, and they've done that already. WWE, it's been done to death. Everybody knows the story. It's I'm glad it was more about Hogan's personal life and not so much a rehash of something that's been told a million times. In that case, I'm okay with it. Um, yeah, Hogan really sounded like a tortured artist. He had a strong work ethic. The guy clearly, loved being in the ring and went through
Hmm.
hell, operation after operation, surgery after surgery to get back in the ring. And the guy was driven. Some of it could have been materialism. I mean, they're on their boat. They like to live high, and
Mm.
I don't know. The guy had a good and bad side. The guy was complicated. I think some of that they captured. Um, you know, Even politically, Trump was his friend. I get that. I
Hmm.
get that. You defend your friends. But when he says Trump is my hero, then you have to go, why? What was heroic? That would lead somebody to say that. And
But
again,
that's just promo cutting.
yeah, but again, a great documentary, and this wasn't a great documentary. The person eviscerates themselves. They speak, they pour their guts out. And if you're going to make a statement about a controversial figure, Trump is my hero, which is his exact words in the film, then you really need to say why. Because
Mm.
at one point in the film, they emphasize he's born again, he's very religious. You know, Trump is not exactly the most spiritual figure in the world, you
No,
know,
true.
cheating on every wife and, you know, banging porn stars and such. He's not the. So if this is your hero, why? Why? What is heroic? What is his appeal to you? You have to you have to go deeper than just a a sound bite like that. A great filmmaker would have gone deeper. I've interviewed I've interviewed tons of people for documentaries and for podcasts and for movies. And you have to be able to ask the tough questions. Hulk or Terry, why is Donald Trump your hero? What about him appeals to you this much that you would make a statement like that rather than just, he was my friend. That's not deep. It's not deep.
Have you ever been shut down in an interview or preempted in an interview to say, don't go this route? Don't talk about
I've
this
had
subject.
interview subjects say many times before the interview, if it's something they're involved with legally, there's some kind of legal issue they have.
Yeah.
They, please let's not go there. Let's not discuss that. And I would always honor that. It's I'm not I'm not a shock jock or a wannabe shock jock where you're asking, so Hulk, how many women did you bang while you were married? I wouldn't ask a question like that. It's to me, it's tacky and it's not the most important thing anyway. But I certainly would address Hulk as a wrestler. Why did you allegedly? You have to always throw in allegedly. Rat out Jesse Ventura when he wanted to form a union when it could have helped your friends. That I would ask. But you throw in allegedly.
Yes, very much so. Actually, I in an interview with one of your wrestling mates, I had to mute part of a response he had because it involved yourself, but it involved a project that you were still working on.
Okay.
I was talking to Uncle Billy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes a filmmaker will say, don't publicly address a project that's not out yet because you don't want somebody to steal the idea. It's WWE
already recorded
documentaries like they're nothing, and some of them are nothing. But
very much so. I mean, and that's why I think a lot of this was sugar coated, was because the WWE don't want to see themselves in that light. That, well, okay, this guy made millions of dollars of money for you, but then why did you still hire him after this scandal, after that scandal, after he's done this and done that? And I mean, if that was the case, then it can be nearly every wrestler who would have something in the closet.
Ideally, a documentarian should have free reign to say what they want to say without answering to $1 billion corporation, without being told or requested to edit certain parts out. You should have the freedom to make the film you want to make, to really tell this man's story. So, for example, Muhammad Ali was one of my heroes. Okay. The most famous person in the world. Why? Because he was Muslim, so the Muslim world embraced him. He fought in Africa against George Foreman, so that part of the world embraced him. He came when closed circuit TV, pre-pay-per-view, closed circuit TV, the technology hit, so he was seen all over the world. Okay, he would not fight in the Vietnam War. He stood by his principles. He lost three and a half years, the prime of his career, because of it. Everybody knows that story. But here's some negatives about Ali. At a press conference, Ali introduced his mistress as his wife. And the reporters go, but Muhammad, that's not your wife. Okay. Now, a documentarian who's trying to tell the complete story will include that. that he's not a saint. Don't portray the guy as a saint, as you know, as good a person as he was, as honorable a person as he was. Okay, he rejected Malcolm X, who was his brother, who was his dear friend. That wasn't a high point of his life, but a good documentarian would include that. The man made mistakes also. He wasn't just this saintly humanitarian figure. That's what a documentarian has to do. Tell all sides of the subject, the good, the bad, the ugly, the mistakes, the comebacks, you know, it's telling a complete picture. And I don't think this particular documentary succeeded, because they weren't willing to go to some of the deeper, darker places. And it had, as I said, it had some very poignant moments, and I did not regret watching it, and I basically enjoyed it. If you were rating it like any movie on a 5-star scale, I'd probably give it 3. It was not a bad film by any means. It didn't do what it should have done in 4 hours. That's a luxury for a filmmaker, a documentary,
Yeah.
have 4 hours.
Well,
And
there is a lot of subject matter there. There is a lot of subject matter there to work with. If a thought came to me that if, say, Netflix and WWE had gone to you instead, how much would you have allowed them to say? Because obviously WWE, well, okay, let's say allegedly they've said we don't want to talk about this controversy or that controversy. How much of that would you have compromised with WWE to get more of the actual story, good, bad, and ugly, rather than just the sanitized version they gave?
I wouldn't compromise anything. If you're a filmmaker, you want to make your film. You want creative control. You don't want a corporation telling you what you can and can't say. You know, uh,
Mm.
you know, if they do that, I mean, my gut tells me that if Triple H is involved in a project about Shawn Michaels and that's his buddy, and he's on payroll and he's working for them and he has an important role at WWE, they're gonna spin it more positively than negatively. That's his
Oh, for
buddy.
sure. For
So
sure. And during the 90s, there was so much negative with Shawn Michaels.
so it's too easy. It's too easy to just do you know, Sean was born again and he's a new person. Okay, well, your former best friend and tag team partner just had an amputation. I would ask, are you helping them? Are you helping the man? You're certainly wealthy
Mm,
enough. I would go there. You
mm.
know, it's rather than he's a new person today. Well, you know, for for everybody at WWE who looked the other way when the guy from Men on a Mission died, he needed $50,000 for a hospital bill. Recently, recently,
Mm,
the guy needed $50,000, and he ended up dying. It's like nobody
mm,
dug into their pocket to help the guy. You got millionaires
mm.
working there. You know, I
Yeah.
I, I would they should just have a fund, take a half of 1% of the immense profits. It's $1 billion company. Start a fund to help these guys, just like the NFL does. I mean, the NFL did it kicking and screaming. They didn't want to. It took years to get it in place, but you need to help these guys. It's
And see, that's another thing we talked to about earlier. You say, okay, men on a mission, yes, they were famous and they were this and that, but for how long? And does that call sustain? Is that a sustained way to say, oh yes, you're set for life? No.
no, and What were they paid at the peak of their fame? It's undoubtedly not as much as people imagine. They weren't making millions. Believe
Well,
me.
well, they're mid card at best. So
Yeah.
if the top guys at that time, I remember in the late '90s, early 2000s, they used to talk about Sting money being about 750,000 a year, and that was allegedly. And
Yeah, well,
then
that's a lot of money back then. Bruno made 250,000 a year in the 1970s. That was a lot of
and that
money,
would have been heaps. That would
you
have been
know.
heaps. Yeah.
But Johnny Valiant, who was my dear friend, slept on my couch. I write a lot about him in my book. He told me he never broke 100 grand in wrestling. Number one tag team in the world, the Valiant Brothers. Number one
Mm,
tag team in the world. Headlining Madison Square Garden 3 times in a year. Headlining all over the territories in Japan. Never made 100 grand. And so you can't tell me they all squandered these immense fortunes that were never made by most of them. It's some partied hard, some blew their money, no doubt, but it's you can't make blanket statements.
oh, for sure. And that's that's the thing because you also don't know what kind of expenses they had after they'd finished, especially with some of them. I mean, I bet you if Hogan had his life um, back, if he could do everything all over again, he wouldn't use a leg drop as a finisher.
Right? Yeah,
Every time it
he pretty
pu-
much said
pushed
that in
his
the
coccyx.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he pushed his coccyx bone straight up. I mean, it's amazing he didn't have his coccyx bone coming up through his larynx.
and
You know,
ironically, as a fan sitting there at Madison Square Garden, I would go, "Oh man, here's the same predictable finish."
hmm,
He didn't need to destroy his body because it didn't do much for me anyway.
yeah. I think where he I mean, there's always that anticipation of a finishing move, but then afterwards, it's all that celebration afterwards. Because in this day and age, people wanting to sing along with us with a song, and then they're flexing. The wrestlers are flexing. I mean, Hogan flexing after WrestleMania 1, he just it was like pure bodybuilding things with the little breast thing going like that. And he was really ripped and he was in good shape because later on he actually started having a bit of a belly to
Hmm. Yeah. Everybody, hindsight's 100%. I'm sure the guy would have done a lot of things differently, and he suffered. You watch part of the reason the film worked to a degree was it was poignant seeing this powerful guy struggling just to walk, to go to the
him.
gym, which is, his sandbox or whatnot. The gym was his domain, and to struggle there at the end. And on that level, the film worked. But yeah, Siskel and Ebert, the famous critics in America, they used to go thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs somewhere in the
Thumbs in the
middle.
middle.
Yeah, I would give this thumb somewhere in the middle, but they could have done a
Yeah,
lot more with it.
I think the content lacked, but they always the WWE know how to make a picture look pretty. They've got very good production values, and obviously they've got a good sized budget to make all the edits and everything look good. As I said, the only thing that surprised me, and maybe that's a lack of available content, was all the early stuff. I swear some of it looked like it come from someone's VHS collection. But with Hogan's, the combination of tall tales and there was some lying and so forth, do you think that he had the onset of dementia?
Um, I didn't get a sense he had dementia. I got a sense that you tell the same stories so many times you start to believe them. Like, for example, he talks about wrestling DiBiase at the Garden, and I was there, 1979. I'm sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and he spins it as that was the main event, but it wasn't. It was just pretty much a meaningless prelim. he was a green guy, and DiBiase sold, and put him over, and that was it. It was not the main event on the card. It was just one of 8 or 9 matches, and at the time, it didn't even mean that much. In hindsight, that was his first match at the Garden, so it had some kind of historic value. But so the question would be, was he lying by saying it's the main event? Did he just forget 45 years later? Did he tell the story like this 500 times where he starts to believe that it's true? Who knows? Who knows? But I can tell you, as a documentarian, the producers, the director, they should have realized they were telling something that's not true. That's their job, to not put out misinformation.
Because but I was looking more at the totality of things you've said along the way about, like for example, he talked about being at SummerSlam '92 in England and he wasn't there. He talked about he's talked, not that in the documentary, but I'm saying in
Right.
other
Shoot
platforms.
interviews or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and he supposedly talked about how he was supposed to be asked to play bass for Metallica, and he was supposed to be the original. And this is something that was debunked by the Foreman family. It was supposed to be the Hulk Hogan grill, not the George Foreman grill.
Well, I believe that about the grill. Yeah, I've heard
It's
that.
actually not true though.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, because the Foreman family came out and said no, it's not true. It was never. The where the mistake happens is Foreman and Hogan did have the same agent.
Oh, okay. So there was some connection. Yeah.
There was a connection, but Hogan was never offered the Foreman grill. It was
Right.
always going to be George Foreman
But
because
again,
the inventor.
again, decades later, and the guy was 70 when he died. Um, how much of it is normal? Your memory isn't quite as good, or the drugs you did, you lost some brain cells along the way, or you just told the story so many times, you start to believe it. But the bottom line is, if something's not true, it's not true, and thus it should not be in the documentary if it's not true.
Hmm. All right. Just before I go, we go, and I'm gonna ask your thoughts on a Triple H quote. As I said, we live streamed this today. We got Lazarus. Say greetings from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia.
He's a good
Clarence also,
man. That guy is so supportive of everybody. That guy, he's a
yeah,
good guy. Respect.
and I and I think with the stuff we were talking about earlier, with movies and that, with your movie critics stuff, he saw the new Mortal Kombat 2 in 40K
I haven't
at
seen it.
4DX at the movies. That was quite fun, and he loved Training Day. Uh, and he asked a question: Who running a low budget movie? How does the cost compare to running an indie pro wrestling show?
Well, it depends on the movie. Um, there's a film called Once, beautiful film shot in Ireland about street musicians. It was done on $120,000. Beautiful film. Everybody
Jeez.
should see it. And it wins Best Song at the Oscars. Now, the musicians who were acting in the movie a few years earlier were busking on the street playing for change, and now they're at the Oscars. And Glenn Hansard was the lead actor in the movie from the band The Swell Season, great band, and he says at the Academy Awards, create art, create art. $120,000. It put him on the map, the band on the map, and 20 years later or whatever, it's still, he's still going strong, plays major venues in New York. I saw him at Radio City, Beacon Theater, Radio City. They play major venues, thousands of seats. Um, so similarly, a wrestler honing his or her craft on the indies can make it one day. They could make it one day. Willow Nightingale used to come on my old show, my old Legends TV show, which was a internet TV show. And, now she's making a good living at AEW and is a champion and wrestles all over the world. So indies and indie films, if they're great, if the artists are great, if the wrestlers are great, they can ascend to fame and fortune. But I'm going to put this out there for anybody who wants to go into wrestling or the arts. Okay, if you have any 10, let's say, musicians, actors, writers, wrestlers, 8 are just not going to make it. One of the remaining will pay the bills but not make it big, and a minuscule portion will ascend to a John Cena or Roman Reigns or Cody or CM Punk, where you're making crazy money and you're on top of the game. But that's such a minuscule portion.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're getting yourself into. And if somebody's young, I always tell them, have a plan B. Writers can teach English. Musicians can teach music. Whatever the plan B is. A wrestler can work in a wrestling school. You're probably not going to main event WrestleMania. This is the reality of it. And taking it to the next level, you could be involved in wrestling or in show business and actually be involved in successful projects, but that's not necessarily going to make you rich either. Okay. Mickey Rourke did not make a fortune doing The Wrestler. It was an indie film. Marissa Tomei did not make a fortune doing The Wrestler. I did not make a fortune working as an associate producer on The Wrestler. It's deceiving. Somebody thinks somebody's on TV or whatnot, they're rich, they're powerful. It's not always the case. And I'll give you a perfect example. You go to a convention, let's say not a wrestling convention per se, a comic and sci-fi, horror, film, and wrestling convention. Everybody's there together. You have the rock stars who haven't had a hit in 30 years. You have the TV stars who haven't had a hit in 40 years. You have the wrestlers who were on top in the 80s or 90s. And why are they all there, pray tell? They need the payday. The height of their fame was a long time ago. And it levels the playing field. You have a wrestler sitting next to a boxer, sitting next to an actor, sitting next to a singer, sitting next to a porn queen, sitting next to a Playboy centerfold, and they all need the money. That's why they're there. It's not as glamorous as people think. That scene in The Wrestler, that tragic autograph scene that I actually acted in, that was improv, by the way. That was improv. Aronofsky just threw me out there cold, no makeup, nothing. So I had taken Aronofsky, Scott Franklin, the executive producer, the money guy. People don't really understand these titles. Associate producer, I was basically the wrestling guy, not the money guy, believe me. So I take them to this convention. It's pretty much the WWE Hall of Fame is there pretty much. It's the Samoans, Lou Albano, Nikolai, Iron Sheik, Moolah, Mae Young, Greg Valentine, Johnny Valiant, etc. All these legends, and there's nobody there. There's nobody there. There's maybe 50 people. It was grim. There were more wrestlers and agents and vendors than there were people at this convention. And Aronofsky's going to me, where is everybody? Where is everybody? Because it broke his heart, because he knew these guys as big, big stars in the 80s. This is after the glory. So these conventions, they're a payday, basically. And the paydays, unless you're a Ric Flair or a big, big name, are not that great. They're not that great, honestly. They're 3 or 4 figures for the most part, unless you're a big, big name. So, or you're on Top Now in WWE and they let you work a convention or whatever.
Lazard had a few more bits to say. He said he saw Willow wrestle live at Brisbane AEW House Rules. He says Hogan should have just used the Bruno Bear hug as a finish. And Ted made Hogan look like $1 million. What was the other thing he said? WWE have enough cash roll. You think they would have money they need to get rid of, so why not invest in healthcare? Goes back to your point. That would have been like a good tax write-off for them. What was popular about yeah, so some great stuff. Thank you, Lazar. He's always supportive of my stuff too, so I'm very happy with him.
Yeah, wrestling needs 1,000 guys like him. You know, it's always like these little feuds, the indie wrestling promoters fighting with the other promoter, you're on my turf. You know, here's a guy who just supports everybody. Do me a favor, plug his stuff if you have it in front of you.
I don't have it in front of me, but Lazar Johnson, he usually says he'll probably send me a bunch of his stuff on private message because I got him on Facebook. Yeah. And so and do you still do that everything coast to coast?
Yeah, wrestling and everything coast to coast. We're about to do our 6th anniversary show, and we basically pour our hearts out about wrestling and everything. We'll go onto tangents, sports, arts, movies, whatever the case may be. And we recently had on Stephanie Powers, the legendary actress. So it's not just wrestling, but we lean towards wrestling, obviously. And wrestling. I have a love-hate relationship with all of it. You know, from the tribalism with the fans to the greed.
Tribalism, my biggest.
Yeah, the greed manga promoters. But when wrestling is done right, like a Will Ospreay, like a Swerve Strickland, like a Gunther, how great is that guy?
He's brilliant.
Yeah, wrestling is an art, and I don't like when somebody outside of wrestling demeans it. What's an intelligent fellow like you doing involved in wrestling?
Oh no, that's my wife. That's my wife. She says that to me.
No, I'm joking.
Nah, definitely not. Nah, she's
joking. I'm joking.
I know. She'll get upset with you and say, "Oh, that Evan."
I'll tell you, my wife, she would feed when they would stay by me, Johnny Valiant, Greg Valentine, Lanny Poffo, and she took it very hard when Lanny died not all that long ago. You know, this guy slept on our couch, ate with us. And Lanny and Nikolai were both quote unquote health nuts. They were careful everything they ate. But I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. The wrestling lifestyle, particularly back in the day, is not conducive to longevity.
No.
Nikolai said to me one night he was so exhausted that he fell asleep with his eyes open. He didn't know it was
Mm.
humanly possible. Eyes were open and he was asleep. That's how running from state to state, continent to continent. So
Mm.
Barry Windham, in an interview, not with me, a different interview, said, he's gotten a lot of criticism for leaving promotions. He said, I worked 96 consecutive days for WWE in the mid 80s, WWF rather, in the mid 80s. And I was exhausted to the point I couldn't do it anymore. And this was a young guy, Can you
Yeah.
imagine? 96 days in a row, crisscrossing the country. And they didn't make it easy for you. It wasn't like going state to state. You would literally be crisscrossing the country.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard about some of that booking stuff, and a lot of wrestlers couldn't understand that. Rather than do a loop of this place, this place, this place, they were whoop, whoop, whoop. Especially because by then they were actually flying on planes, but they described the flying on planes as like a process because you get to the airport, you've got to put your rental away, and then you've got to line up, get on, line up, get on board, do your flight, get off, line up to do this, line up
Try
to
to
do
get to
that,
the
line
gym.
up your rental,
Try to look
get
good.
some gym in,
Yeah.
get settled in the airport, get get some food into you, get a bit of rest somewhere, and
I
then do the whole
interviewed
process all
I
over
interviewed
again.
I interviewed Sherry Martel years ago. She said to me, quote, I was on the road 15 consecutive years. I didn't see my son grow up, you
Mm,
know. And in 350 days, Wendy Richter said, I couldn't have a baby. What am I supposed to do? Put him on the ring apron?
really
You
brave.
know?
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember
So
that in the documentary.
these wrestlers sacrificed physically, mentally, emotionally for us, and for the fans to do the, I would never give money to a GoFundMe. You give 5 figures to a ruthless corporation, but you won't give $5 to a legend who's
Mm,
sacrificing for you. I think you have some really misplaced priorities and loyalties. You know, you help these guys because WWE isn't willing to for the most part.
So you talk, we talked just before about like my wife saying the exact thing you'd say about that, but for my birthday in February, um, I was given a set of tickets for myself and my second oldest to go see Rob Van Dam in his final match in Australia. It
He
was
was
here in
always
Melbourne.
great. Rob Van Dam was always great. Yeah.
But my second oldest son, who normally comes with me on the odd occasion to wrestling, because I go to a local promotion here in Melbourne called Alpha Pro Wrestling, and I usually go by myself. But this one, I was hoping to film a bit of content for If You See K-Babe, what you're watching now. But did end up, I filmed a little bit of stuff, but he couldn't make it because of work. So my wife came, and she doesn't like wrestling, but she did get an appreciation of what they go through because every time they did a flat back, oh, there's even a photo from the company on their Facebook. You see her going,
Yeah, that's funny.
and then afterwards we met one of the wrestlers that I know from Alpha Pro. He actually saw me and said, "Oh, yeah." And then I said, "Come over and introduce him to my wife." And she found him to be a very, very nice fellow. And I said, well, a lot of them are. They're just regular folk. I said, this guy's a primary school teacher.
Hmm.
There's another guy who wrestles at Alpha Pro. He's a aged care uh, support worker.
Right. That's what my wife does. Yeah.
Ah. My wife used to do disability support work, but she can't really do it these days because circumstances, especially because even though her mother-in-law's in a home, my wife still has to do a lot of her organisations and this and that. But yeah, there's she did get an appreciation of what people are like behind the scenes, but it's just that what she sees with a lot of the wrestling she doesn't like because it's not what it. In a way, in lots of ways, it's not what it was because I mean, to pop people, you've got to throw someone through a table. To pop someone else, I mean, this is where I hate some of these hardcore matches now, where they're using light tubes. That's dangerous for one thing, but to me, it's cheap pyro.
I have a friend who does hardcore. His lung collapsed during a match. I mean,
Oh,
makes I tell a story in my book, Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. I take Aronofsky and them to CZW, Cage of Death. Cage of Death. And they're going through panes of glass. You can't imagine. And they invited us backstage. I'm there with Mickey Rourke, Aronofsky, the crew. Not filming, we're just there, observing. And backstage, it's like a mass unit. These guys are covered in blood. They're stitching them up. It's like like an earthquake had just hit, and these are the victims. And for a minuscule indie payday, no less. But I'm watching it. This is the funny part. I'm watching it, and half my brain is going, "This is great," and the other half is going, "These guys are insane, and they're not going to end well." And this was a long time ago. This was 2006 or 7. We filmed in 2008, and yeah, some of these guys are gone. It's not. That's certainly not conducive to longevity wrestling.
well,
Hardcore.
even the story about Sabu's last match, and then he's all of a sudden gone not long after that. I think like next day or day after or something like that.
I'll
And
tell you.
and the stories.
Yeah, I'll tell you Sabu's story. Melissa Coates, his girlfriend, she was a dear friend of mine. She was at my wedding. And at one point, Sabu needed a hip replacement, a legit hip replacement from all those crazy bumps and going through all the tables and whatnot. So he has a GoFundMe set up. And some podcasters, I don't even remember their names. This is a long time ago in the Midwest. They're claiming it's not a legit GoFundMe. Only it was. So they're like Evan Ginzburg, who was just involved with the wrestler. He's getting behind this phony GoFundMe. And I'm like, listen, this is totally 110% legit. And they're taking it to another place. Sabu's just going to use the money to buy drugs and whatever. And I'm like, listen, the guy needs a hip replacement. And he had a hip replacement. So these guys get on a podcast and they're trashing me for helping my friends, Melissa Coates' boyfriend's legit hip replacement, Sabu's hip replacement. So, there's a seamy side to this business, and sometimes it's the fans, not necessarily the wrestlers. Sometimes.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. Even like I've questioned some things that have happened in the last couple of years, especially surrounding CM Punk and the goings ons. I thought some of the stuff, the backstage stuff, was just a work, but found out the first one wasn't. Well, none of it was a work, and I apologise. I said, I don't know how many people took notice of it or how many people did this and that, but for whoever might have heard it, I apologise and said, well, I was wrong.
Well, somebody admitting they're wrong is a positive character trait, as opposed to I'm always right and you're always wrong. These guys. But yeah, if you're man enough to apologize for something, that's great. And
yeah.
Many times, if somebody asks me something, I'll admit I don't know. I don't know that person. I'm hearing what you're hearing. you throw in the word. You throw in allegedly, like I said before, because you don't know it. You're not all knowing. It's
Oh, for sure.
you just try to be honorable and speak your mind, speak your heart. I mean, the other side of journalism is telling both sides. WWE helps breast cancer. WWE breast cancer organizations that fight breast cancer, I should say. WWE has helped various charities. They have a good side to them too. They've helped wrestlers in need of drug rehabilitation and such. They have a good side to them. I don't want to paint it all bad, but you can call out a $1 billion corporation when they do wrong, and
Oh, for sure.
without people attacking you for doing so.
And you get the same thing if you attack AEW. People say, "Oh, aren't you interested in anything other than WWE?" Well, AEW make mistakes as well, and
I've sat at AEW pay-per-views, and I like AEW, and I think Osprey's best in the world, and I like a lot of their wrestlers. But I'll tell you, you get there, let's say 6:30 p.m. The pre-show is at 7 to 8. Okay, you got 4 matches squeezed into that pre-show. Then the first match on the pay-per-view is at 8, and that's really the 5th match of the night because you've just seen 4 matches. Then it
you've
goes to
seen the whole card.
then it goes to let's say 11:45 at night, 11:50 at night, midnight. You're sitting there for 6 hours, 14 matches. Okay. It's an endurance contest. You've traveled to get there. Now you have to travel to get home. Okay. So it's exhausting. And if let's say 2 or 3 of the 14 matches are actually great, okay, you saw some great wrestling. But I'll tell you something, a NWA house show mid 80s was better than an AEW pay-per-view. When they had the Horsemen and Magnum and all of these great Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, those were better shows than AEW pay-per-views. And ROH house shows at the Manhattan Center or whatnot in New York during the Nigel McGuinness era in the 2000s. Brian Danielson, Kevin Steen, Tyler Black, aka Seth Rollins, all these guys, those were every bit as good, if not better, than AEW pay-per-views. So you have this all-time great talent roster, an all-time expensive salary-wise talent roster, and you have an awful lot of great wrestlers only having okay, good, or very good matches because it becomes the endless entrances, the sing-alongs, the run-ins, the screw job finishes. AEW is not a flawless product. I prefer it to WWE 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times. WrestleMania Night 2 was excellent, but for the most part, WWE pay-per-views can be lacking. But, the tribalism, what I tell people, treat it all like a smorgasbord. Watch some Japanese wrestling. Watch some indies. Watch AEW. Watch WWE. But you don't have to religiously watch every minute of every show. Then it's obsessive and it's a waste of time after a while. I don't need to watch 30 hours of wrestling every week. I'll watch Saturday night's main event tonight. I'll watch AEW pay-per-view tomorrow. And I'll watch the WWE pay-per-view next week. That's plenty. That's plenty of wrestling in a brief amount of time. I don't need to watch every hour of every show. I just don't.
But see, here in Australia, as I've said to you, when WrestleMania hit, we got WrestleMania 1, and then we got WWF Superstars, which was about 3 or 4 weeks behind America. But we didn't get anything else, especially because you're probably aware of it being a producer. America has a TV format called NTSC. Australia has a format called PAL, and the two don't talk to each other.
Right, right,
So if you in the 80s, if you sent me a tape from America, I would have to get it converted somewhere. I'd have to pay someone to convert it
right.
because the signals don't mix. It wasn't until about 89 or 90 that we started getting like Panasonic and Sony VCRs that had what was called NTSC playback, which meant that you put a tape in that was from America and it would play the American tape. Because similarly, if I sent a videotape to you, it'd all come up all scrambled.
Right.
And nowadays, if people want to watch something like other than the big two, they can watch a TNA or watch a Triple A or watch MLW, NWA Power. I mean, I watched Chikara Pro for a little bit as well, and I actually interviewed Mike Quackenbush about that.
Yeah, he's quality wrestler.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he came out to Australia as well. He went to Alpha Pro and did a series of seminars there, and wrestled a main event. And we do have a smorgasbord that you can watch bits and pieces, and even if you don't want to sit through a whole show,
Yeah,
companies will snip up. And I'm watching a bit of SICW at the moment because I interviewed Herb Simmons,
yeah.
Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling. Looking forward to your mate Uncle Billy coming back at New York Wrestling NYWC.
Yeah, Chris Michaels, excellent, excellent wrestler, and he's been out there for the longest time, and he wrestled everybody. He's a walking, fountain of information, as Monsoon would say. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I just always refer to him as Uncle Billy with
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
latest gimmick.
yeah,
With
yeah.
his latest gimmick.
One of my closest friends.
Mm. Yeah, all right. Last thing I'm going to say. I want to get your thought on this. Triple H, towards the end of Chapter 4, said that when they cancelled Terry Bollea, not Hulk Hogan. Now, I thought that was some sort of fancy way of saying something, I don't know what, because just all the Hogan footage got wiped from WWE openers and whatnot. So it seems like they did more than cancel just Terry Bollea. What do you think?
I think as a corporate vulture, he has to say what he has to say to protect his company, and I would take anything he says with a grain of salt. You know, politically, he leans the same way that Hogan did, and the spin. It was interesting when they booed him out of that building on that WWE show,
Mm.
which was painful to watch in the documentary. Um, the spin was, oh, that's liberal LA. I don't think that was all of it. I think it's a lot of wrestling fans who knew about what Jesse Ventura had said about the union, who knew about various other behind the scenes maneuvering and backstabbing and such. It wasn't just a sea of liberals booing the guy because he's pro-Trump. I think that was a convenient spin, or on Hogan's part, a rationalization. Um, I mean, I'm an old school New York City Democrat. I wouldn't boo a guy just because they vote differently than me. Chris Jericho leans right, and he's the first guy to dig into his pocket to help wrestlers when they're in need. Chris
Mm.
Jericho has a heart. I would never boo this guy because we quote unquote vote differently. So I think Triple H, spinning Hogan's rejection a certain way, and even Hogan spinning his own, getting booed out of the building. Jimmy Hart, I don't even know his politics, but it's It's sad, and I think it's a big mistake for celebrities to go too strong with the politics because you hear this absolute nonsense. Like people on the right will go, Barbara Streisand sucks, Bruce Springsteen sucks, and no, they don't. It's just you're biased because of their politics. People on the left can't say that Ted Nugent doesn't play a great guitar. The guy's a great guitarist. You can dislike his politics. I'll tell you a funny story. So I go to see Morrissey,
Oh
um,
boy.
and my friends are telling me, "Oh, the guy's terrible guy, terrible politics, terrible, terrible, terrible. Don't go." So I go to see the guy. He doesn't say one political thing, and he puts on a great show, and I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, once you get into that, the fans hate Mick Foley because he's on the left, or the fans on the left hate a wrestler because he's on the right. It's like that doesn't you, you know I may not appreciate Ric Flair's politics, but you can't tell me that NWA champ Ric Flair wasn't great. The guy was great.
Mm.
You're rewriting history based on your biases when you go that route. And I don't know. I think celebs should really. I could see a celebrity rallying behind a particular charity. My aunt died of this, so support this charity. But
Yeah.
but Stephen Colbert, it's a big thing. His show ended this week in New York.
Yes.
I found it boring that for 20 minutes every night he was attacking Trump. I mean, to me, comedians shouldn't be repetitive. And I'm not a big Trump fan, but as far as entertainment, it's like watching the same show every night. Stephen Colbert's
Yeah.
mocking Trump for year after year after year. It's like find some new material. Oh my God! It's like the Colbert
Yeah.
fans hate me now.
Yeah. I didn't mind Colbert. I like Kimmel better. Kimmel's got more heart because he goes with a lot more emotion.
Yeah,
Colbert's got a bit more cynicism about him.
but you want to know something? Late at night, you want to unwind, and Johnny Carson. I'm older. I grew up on Johnny Carson. You wouldn't even know his politics. You would never know. How did this guy vote? Okay.
Mm.
Letterman was just funny and goofy and irrelevant. Letterman was funny. You want to laugh.
Mm.
Conan was funny. You want to laugh. I don't necessarily need a talk show host to do 20 minutes on politics every night. You want to unwind at the end of the day and just you know I'm watching a lot less news these days because
Ah.
the extreme left and the extreme right are both insane. They're both
Mm.
insane.
Yeah.
Trump was sent by Jesus to save America. I'm sorry, you're insane. Hamas are the good guys. I'm sorry, you guys on the left are insane also.
Yeah.
Hamas murdered, raped, tortured, you know, kidnapped over 1,000 people.
Oh yeah.
You can't spin that these are the good guys. I'm sorry, the extreme
Yeah.
left are insane also. You can't spin
The
that rioting and burning down a business is righteous indignation. You can't spin that. It's wrong. I'm sorry. The extreme left and the extreme right make it difficult for the sane people in the middle. I'm a Democrat. I have Republican friends. I love them. They're my friends. Everybody wants the same thing.
mm.
You want a good job, a nice place to live, a nice family, nice friends, a dog, a cat, whatever the case may be. That's
Oh
what
yeah.
sane people in the middle want on both sides. Really.
Yeah. Also, whenever I see a news story, I've got to see who it's from, and then I know how to evaluate it. I know how
Yeah.
to evaluate it because every particular, even the ones that say they're down the middle, they're not. No one's down the middle anymore because News is now entertainment.
Yeah, and it's
Because
big money, big money.
here in Australia, for years we only had the four channels, three commercial channels and one that's ABC. That's like a Australian version of BBC. The three commercial channels before we had remote controls, they used to pour all their money, and they still do it in a way these days. But you had your 6 o'clock news, although one channel did a 5 o'clock news because they were first at five, and they poured all the money in the news because there was a theory that said you would have people more likely to leave the TV on that channel rather than get up and change the dial
Right.
because of the news they watched. So if you like this guy over in Channel 9, you watch Channel 9 programming all night. Oh, you like the bird on Channel 7. Oh, then you watch Channel 7 programming all night. And and apparently the ratings bore that out to a degree. It wasn't an absolute, but it was a percentage that seemed to ring true if you follow the stats.
Right.
But these days, because now it's more of an entertainment. I mean, the news. If you really wanted to know what was going on, why do you need a flashy set with someone dressed up in a suit and so forth? Oh, because it's trustworthy. No, trustworthy means you got the real story, and doesn't matter if the guy's sitting in the tea room.
Yeah.
He could be
Yeah.
sitting in the lunchroom and presenting the news. If it's the news, it's the news. It's fact. If
Walter
it's right,
Cronkite, when I was a kid, you didn't know his politics. The guy just told the news, you know.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, Fox News admits that they're entertainment, and
Mm-hmm.
CNN is certainly biased as well. I mean, you know, Trump could do no wrong on one side, Trump can do no right on the other side.
Yeah,
How about sometimes the guy does wrong and sometimes the guy does right? This is what,
yeah.
if you want to be honest, may not be
But this is
popular.
what this is what this is what this is what seeps through to wrestling rather than because there always was like there were even back in the 80s and 90s. I did read about how you'd have your NWA people that didn't like WWE stuff and vice versa. But most because even during the Attitude Wars, during the Monday Night Wars, there'd be a certain cohort, a big cohort, that would watch one show, tape the other, and then watch that back
I would
afterwards.
watch them both simultaneously and just pick the better match of the two. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Uh,
need to pick one and eliminate the other.
oh, for sure. Because what do you then say? What do you then say when your top guy from this promotion goes over to here?
Yeah, today, depending on which billion-dollar corporation you've attached yourself to, the guy jumps to the other promotion. Now they hate the guy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Why? Why? So does that mean if Osprey went to WWE tomorrow, all of a sudden he's no longer the greatest wrestler in the world? No, he's still the wrestler. He
I
will
would,
get watered down. He
yeah,
will
I would
get
just
watered
be
down.
concerned that they do to him what they did to Nakamura. Nakamura was one of the best in the world in New
Mm.
Japan, and then he became just another warm body on a card. So that would be my fear with Osprey. I would still hope he would continue to be great. You hope so if he ever went to WWE.
I
But
always believed that AJ Styles, although he had a good run, it could have been a whole lot better. I still reckon, to a point, WWE buried him.
AJ Styles in TNA was much better than in
Yeah.
WWE for the most part.
Oh yeah, because he was given free reign. His look got better in WWE. His overall look got better, in my opinion. But his work rate, the stuff that he did in TNA, it was phenomenal. That's why I just loved it. And I
Finn
mean,
Balor's done pretty much nothing for the past 10 years, with a few exceptions.
well, even with AJ Styles, his debut entrance at the Royal Rumble, they botched that so badly. Because if you see alternate angles, because the original angle from the actual pay per view, the SummerSlam Royal Rumble, is coming out at number 3. They focus on Raw and Roman Reigns trying to say, "Oh, who's this new guy? Who's this new guy?" I don't recognise it. And by the time they focus on AJ, he's already just about out. But if you see the alternate views, the crowd pops massive when they see on the screen, "I am phenomenal," and everyone just lost their load on that. And they threw the babies in the air because they just knew who it was, and that was without him coming out. You tell me another wrestler that would come out to a pop before they even got out.
Yeah, no, AJ's great, but I think he was greater for the most part in TNA. He was also younger, but WWE doesn't do a lot of these guys favors. Nakamura,
And I think that's what I'm.
Nakamura they killed. Nakamura was a shame.
Yeah, I mean they did elevate Owens. I think they did a good job with Owens.
Yeah, but
So I
in
think
Ring of
they,
Honor, he had a lot more great matches, more consistently. You could count his great matches in any given year on one hand in WWE. You know, he did
mm,
more in a month in Ring of Honor than he does in a year in WWE. So, um, I, you know, they don't do a lot of the great wrestlers favors for the most part. Gunther has shined. You know,
Gunther is elevated a lot.
yeah.
He's elevated a lot, and I'm worried that they're dropping the ball on Braun Breaker.
I don't think Breaker's that great, to be honest. I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
I think he's got the hype machine behind him, but where are the great matches? He does the spear, 1,037 times. It's not even convincing. The Frankensteiner is lame. I don't think he touches a Scott Steiner in his prime. I don't think he touches
Mm,
Rick Steiner in his prime. I used to go see the Steiners. I mean, if you can't deliver great matches, you're not great, no matter how hard they hype
mm,
you. LA Knight, the same thing. Where are the great matches? This guy's been in pay per view main events and co features. If you can't deliver great matches, how are you great? This is the weird thing with WWE. You keep hearing great, 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 great. It cheapens the word great. I mean, as an old school fan, yeah, what was legitimately classic was Reigns and Punk the second night of
mm.
WrestleMania. 35 minutes, no run-ins, no screw job. These guys just wrestled. It was tremendous. Why can't they do more of that?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, because we're now starting to realise it is more the storyline that makes a good match as well, not just because everyone seems to think, "Oh, we get in our great moves, well, that makes a great match." But there's also the element that I think is lost in most popular wrestling is that simulation of an actual combat.
Yeah.
Not it's that it's not they're not there. They're there to get their moves in and get pops, but they're not there to simulate and say, like they talk in their promo, say, "Well, I'm going to get my hands raised. I'm going to be the champion." But in actual reality, when they get out in the match, they're not there wrestling a match like, well, and okay, everyone's let in on it that it's a work, but I mean, a movie's a work anyway. And when you get to a movie and say the hero wants to capture the bad guy, he doesn't just say, "Well, I'm going to do a fancy move and say a fancy word, and then maybe I'll catch the bad guy." No, he goes out there and simulates what a good guy would do to capture a bad guy. Chase him in a fast car, shoot at him with his pistol, try and cuff him. not simulated. There's simulation, but there's also simulation with intent. Oh,
Yeah. Um, Look, the bottom line is any entertainment, wrestling, boxing, movies, theater, TV, you have to care. You have to care. If the storyline is insulting, you don't care. If they just
boy.
slap 10 guys together like AEW does, I don't care. Why are these 10 guys just doing high spots? Why they even team these guys up? What's the meaning of this? You have to
Mm,
care. And I would say 80% of what Triple H and WWE and the ironically named creative churns out, I don't care. I don't care.
mm,
Easy, 80%. And I would say two-thirds of what AEW pumps out, I honestly don't care. But I always, whether it's AEW or WWE, I root for a great match. I want
mm,
to see a great match. That's why I'm watching. If I'm watching a movie, I'm hoping to see a great movie or at least a great performance or at least to
yeah.
feel something, not sit there numb. So, you know, I think you have these two, AEW and WWE, these two unbelievable all-time great talent rosters. Both. Pick whichever one you prefer. I prefer AEW, but both have great wrestlers, and most of the time they're only having okay or good or very good matches. And that's because of the way they choose to present it all. It's not about the wrestling for the most part anymore. I don't need to see another guy go through a table. I
Mm.
don't need to see another guy outside the ring and they're doing the head against the ring announcer's table and it's missing by 3 feet. They're banging the guy's head against the table and it's missing by 3 feet and the guy's selling it. It's like, just get in the ring, have a great match. Forget about the sing-alongs and the product placement and the D-list celebrities and the run-in and the screw job. Just let two guys wrestle until somebody pins one clean in the middle of the ring. That's dramatic. One guy
without
vanquishes
ba-
the other one.
without bastardizing the finish.
I mean,
Protect
God,
the
how
finish.
many times do you need to see the Usos and the Bloodline run in at the end of a match? Oh my God.
Oh, see, I'm bored with the Usos are Polynesian young bucks to me.
I mean,
It's yeah, they're good and athletic, and they got the crowd going. They've got a good look, but they're just another super kick party. And I mean, once upon a time, the super kick was a finishing maneuver. But another thing. I hate the escalation of where people get hit by chairs and they're not down for a 3 count. They get hit by chains and hammers and what's next? A bazooka. Roman Reigns will win his next title with a hand grenade down someone's shorts.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, sometimes they throw the baby out with the bathwater. I almost, as much as I enjoy AEW, um, I almost brace myself because it's an endurance contest. Tomorrow night you'll sit there easy for 5 hours, almost 5 hours,
Mm.
and unless something's truly great, and most aren't, it's a long investment to watch something. I don't watch five
Yeah,
hour I don't watch 5 hour movies. You can
yeah,
watch a TV show for 5 hours, but you know, if you had to watch a 5 hour movie, you'd have to get like emotionally prepared for it. It's a long time to sit and watch something. My goal isn't to sit in front of a TV or a computer endlessly.
yeah. I understand. It's yeah. Let's finish on a better note. Let's finish on a better note. One thing I do like about both the big companies is there is a lot of great production. They're finding innovative ways to present the whole shebang. Um, AEW, I've always said, a little bit underproduced, whereas WWE a bit overproduced. One thing I like with WWE with their replays, they show slow motion and they fast forward it just before they would have revealed the secret source, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Um, I um, I think Danhausen is great. That's performance
Yeah.
art. The guy's sharp. He's funny. Um, I would watch a 30-minute Danhausen sitcom or whatnot, or a reality show. The guy's just funny. I think that's great. I don't think the endless promos and interviews are necessarily helping them. The commercials certainly aren't, especially mid main event, two commercial breaks, 7, 8 commercials each. I think it just kills a match dead. But Danhausen's great. Recently, I saw some promos with Royce Keys, where he goes into his old neighborhood and he gets very emotional. I think that's great. Show them as human beings. Show them
Mm.
as real people, where you care about them as athletes, not as a cartoon. Um, yeah, Rio and Asuka, hugging and being emotional. That's real. Show stuff that's real and make us care. That I think, at times when they're willing to, I think that's excellent.
I've
Eight.
always,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, I've always, I've said it a couple of times on this show that what they should implement in Australia, we've got a thing called the pub test, and it's like a sniff test. The pub test basically means if you present an idea or an angle or a story, it's got to be feasible to the lowest common denominator, to absolutely anyone. Doesn't matter who it is. So if I present to you a storyline, nobody should be able to poke holes in it. It's got to make sense and be entertaining. You do that, and you can't miss. Now it's hard coming up with one every week or a continuation every week, but they used to do that back in the 80s, and they were entertaining as hell.
The problem becomes, in the past 10 years, I was emotionally invested in the bloodline, not recently, but most of its run. Cody and Dustin having that feud, that was emotionally involving.
Mhm,
Brian,
mhm.
Daniel Bryan climbing to the top at WWE, the underdog, that whole saga. Cody climbing to the top in WWE. Much more than that, I can't say I'm emotionally invested. Um, it's like Drew McIntyre and Punk fighting over, some gimmick. It wasn't that interesting to me, honestly. Some charm bracelet or whatnot. Um,
I just liked it because I like both of those guys. They're
oh, I
both
like both of those
awesome.
guys, no doubt. Drew McIntyre always puts on an excellent match, but
Yeah.
my point being, make me care as an old school fan
Mm.
who's seen everything, everyone, every place. Make me care. And it's not that often that I care. And if I don't care, at bare minimum, have a great match.
Mm.
Have a great match. Not just a good match. Have a great match. And these guys are capable of it. Let them go. Let them go that 15 minutes or 20 minutes if they need it. That first night of WrestleMania, those matches were 7, 8 minutes. And then you were hit with a bombardment of commercials. You can't go more than 7 or 8 minutes. These people are spending crazy money to see this.
Yeah. And some of those commercials are putting them up on the screen. I've seen fan footage of being at WrestleMania. Guy sitting in the third row, and while they're wrestling, all of a sudden they see what the home viewer sees. It's gone to a commercial break, and apparently that was really distracting because they didn't know. Do we look at the commercials or we look at the wrestling?
Yeah. 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 Um, I was in Korea with my wife years ago. I'm watching wrestling, and what they do is they put a ton of commercials before and after the match, not during the
Yeah,
match. They respect
yeah.
it like it's MMA or boxing. You would never see a commercial in the middle of a boxing match. They would never cut away from the 3 minute round for a commercial. This is absurd. So you have a quality match, and there's an 8 commercial break. Then they go back to the match. Then there's an 8 commercial break. Then they finish the match, and it's like, what's the point? They they take you out of it. They totally
And what
take.
do you think of the canvas having gimmicks, ads and that?
I don't like it, but I'm not fixated on it. I think it's worse when you have like Logan Paul, where he's holding the energy drink in his hand like it's a living commercial. I think that's tacky. I mean, in boxing, you have advertisements on the canvas, so I'm kind of used to it. It doesn't really bother me. It
Mm.
bothers me more that on a 3-hour program, there's 27 minutes of wrestling or 23 minutes
Yeah.
of wrestling. That bothers me because I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
going
for
to
sure.
invest. I'm not going to invest 3 hours to watch 23 minutes of commercial ridden wrestling. I'll invest that 3 hours going to the gym, going to a restaurant, watching one or two movies. Watch 2 hour and a half movies in that same 3 hours.
We'll go to an indie show.
Or go to an indie. Yeah, support indies. That's reasonable. Reasonable.
And you do get a lot more wrestling per that. Like some of them will have some of them will have like a little promo here or there for 4 or 5 minutes to set up an angle or something like that. But
Yeah.
as
Indie
a
shows,
main,
indie shows, you meet the wrestlers, you get autographs, you take pictures, you know some
mm,
of the fans. It's just a better experience than sitting in nosebleed seats. And the last garden card, I think it was a Raw or a SmackDown. I don't go anymore. It was $122 on top. So let's say mom, dad, 2 kids. You're looking at $500 before you walked out the door, and then you have the transportation, the food, the gimmicks. You're looking at possibly $1,000 night. It's ridiculous for a TV taping. So at an indie show for 15, 20, 25, $30, it's just a better at this point. You're right on top of the action and you're meeting everybody.
oh for sure, and yeah, go Alpha Pro and go your mob too. New York Wrestling
New York
Wrestling
Wrestling Connection, Uncle
Connection.
Billy.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I watched a little bit of that stuff, and it's pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff.
Colossal
So
Championship Wrestling's very good. They run near me.
okay, Colossal. I'll have a look at that because I'm pretty sure they've got a couple of YouTube clips.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good
This
these
guy,
days.
this guy
And
Cha Cha Charlie's very good. Very good.
which one's that?
Cha Cha Charlie.
Cha Cha Charlie.
Yeah, good wrestler, good gimmick, charisma, colorful, fan friendly. Cha Cha Charlie, very good.
Yeah. As I said, I always support Alpha Pro Wrestling. I missed their card last week because I was crook. But June 20, they've got one at Broadmeadows, which is about 25 minutes away from me.
It's on my bucket list to get to Australia. I want to come one day and check out your promotion and
Oh yeah,
everybody.
we'll go on a promotion crawl.
No, seriously. I mean, it's a hike from New York, but next time I'm in Korea, it's not that bad. Korea to Australia.
Yeah, for sure.
Wife's
We're on
Korean.
the same. We're on the same time zone as Korea.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a lot
because
easier.
I remember that during the '88 Olympics.
Yeah, I think New York to Australia is like 22 hours or something. It's not across the street.
No, I know that. All right, well, that will do us. Thank you, everyone who's joined us in the live stream, especially Lazar Johnson. Plenty of things I didn't get to on the thing there saying that Kurt Angle was big in WWE, went to TNA, felt he did better work in TNA, was stuck with Samoa Joe and Styles. His favourite Finn Balor was match in WWE was with AJ Styles, and how they played off their Bullet Club connection. And yeah, so lots and lots of stuff there.
Let me let
And
me let me just quickly plug Laz's Fight World fan group, Laz's Pro Wrestling fan group, etc. So on. He's a good guy. He always helps everybody. So I just wanted to throw that in.
yeah, good on you, Lazar. Yeah, he always looks after me. So in this is Saturday night in Australia, or yeah, just gone just after midnight, so it's Sunday morning. But to me, the morning doesn't happen until I've had a sleep.
So it's
I can
Sunday
go to bed at 3.
there, Sunday morning there, and it's Saturday morning here. That's yeah, the other side of the world, boy.
Yeah, that's it. But the point being is that I'll be redoing this over the next couple of days as a pre-recorded thing where I'll put pictures because I like to put pictures up of people we've been talking about because
Sure.
you and I will know all these, but I don't. I treat it as though the audience might be seeing it for the first time, so that way they can put because, for example, I know who Don Owens is, and I know what that he was Pacific Northwest promoter,
Yeah.
but I couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
Yeah.
I
Well,
only read about him. I
yeah,
never
yeah.
seen
No,
a picture of
same
him.
thing. I wouldn't. I'm 3,000 miles away from there also. So yeah, I wouldn't know facially.
Yeah. All right. This has been really, really good. Thanks for your input about the Hogan documentary. It was interesting getting a proper insight from a proper filmmaker,
My
as well as
pleasure. And again, you want to call it down the middle. There's pluses to it. I did not regret investing 4 hours in it. I just
mm,
think it's flawed. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
FLAWED, flawed. But
flawed. But I still say a lot of that is to do with the people who funded it
probably,
in
probably.
WWE. I
Um,
reckon it's a lot to do with that.
I'd be
Maybe the family, but I'd say more to do with WWE because they don't want to be seen in a bad light by
WWE has a
association.
documentary coming out about WWE. That should be that might be absurd. Who knows? I'm curious to see.
Oh well, that'll be the whitewash of all whitewashes.
I'm curious to see that, and I may not be as kind after watching that, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, the VKM will come out as Santa Claus.
yeah. Anyway, man, thank you so much. And you missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't miss Southern Joe's podcast. You do excellent work.
Yeah, this has been If You See Kayfabe with our special guest Evan Ginzburg. Share, subscribe, do all the works, and we'll catch you another time. All the very best.